Welcome to One Chapter, One Thought. I'm Pastor Chris from Lincroft Bible Church in New Jersey, and every weekday I read one chapter of the Bible and offer one brief devotional thought. Today's reading is from the book of Genesis, chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "The Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her." And Abram agreed with Sarai's proposal. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abraham as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who's wrong, you or me." Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so you deal with her as you see fit." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit to her authority." Then he added, "I will give you more descendants than you can count." And the angel also said, "You are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God hears, for the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives." Therefore, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, "You are the God who sees me." She also said, "I have truly seen the one who sees me." So that the well was named Beer Lahai Roi, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. One thought. Anyone who tells you that the life of faith is easy really doesn't know what they're talking about. Because the life of faith is exactly that, a life of faith, and faith really means trust. A life of faith is having to trust the Lord even when we're still waiting on the outcome, even when we don't know what the future will hold for us. And that is exemplified here in Abram's life. Abram was given a great promise from the Lord. God had told him, "Count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have," back in Genesis 15:5. But now, in this chapter, it's been 10 years since that promise. And Abraham and Sarah are no closer to having a child than they were 10 years before. So, what do? Well, we see the folly of human effort on display here, because Sarah tells Abram to sleep with essentially what would be her personal assistant, Hagar, an Egyptian servant, in the camp. Remember, Abraham is functioning kind of like a king here. He had warriors, 318 warriors, from which he rescued Lot in Genesis 14. He would have been the head patriarch of a large, wandering, nomadic clan with many servants and other people in his family. And so Sarai gets the idea, all right, well, if I'm infertile and I can't have kids, then take a servant and we will essentially adopt this child from the servant girl as our own heir, and you, Abraham, can at least have a half son. We can have a half son, a stepson, I guess, from Sarah's perspective as an heir. And things do not go according to plan very well because conflict ensues. Hagar gets pregnant, and being pregnant, then she starts showing contempt to Sarah, and Sarah blames Abraham, and then Abraham passes the buck and says Sarah can do whatever she wants to Hagar, and Sarah treats her very, very poorly. All that to be said, the whole episode shows us the folly of human effort. God had promised that a son would come from Abraham, promised that he would have descendants, and yet Abraham and Sarah take things into their own hands. And yet, throughout the story as well, we see God's grace, especially shown towards Hagar, who would have been in a very lowly position as a servant girl, and she's running away. And God comes to her and sees her in her plight. And he shows his grace on this lowly woman and eventually brings her back to family. But God is gracious also to Abram and Sarah in this story, because although they've messed up, he still uses them for his purposes. He still uses them for his plan. He doesn't just cut them out because they lack faith in that moment, but he shows his grace. And when we stray from God's plan, he, in his grace, will pick us back up, dust us off, and set us back on the path again.